Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
And here we are, another edition of Talking Books and Writing and Stuff. And today we're talking about a lot of things, books and writing and other stuff, including self help and self care for caregivers. We're talking with Farzana Doctor. And so, again, thank you very much for finding time for me today, Farzana.
Oh, it's a pleasure to talk with you.
Okay, we're talking with Farzana Doctor. The book we have right now, 52 Weeks to a Sweeter Life, and it's for caregivers, activists, and helping professionals. So, I guess right off the bat, we'd like to know why this book? What inspired you to come up with a topic and a subject such as this one?
Yeah, well, it's because I've been an activist and a social worker for the last 35 years now. And in more recent years, I've had more experience with caregiving. And, this has been this constant kind of work in progress for me in balancing everything out and dealing with things like overwork and burnout. And one of the things I've seen along the way in these last 35 years is that there are many people like me who might know about how to take care of themselves, but they don't seem to be able to do it themselves. So I wanted to write this very kind of accessible book. Everything is in bite-sized pieces to get people to do some more thinking about why it's hard for them and how they can easily step into accessing more community care, accessing more self-care. So that's how it all came about.
And so this is it mainly for professionals, as it were, or can the average person who is maybe taking care of an elderly parent, a younger child, everything else in between? A lot of us now we're sort of past the sandwich generation, but we still have lots of caregiving going on. Is it for us as well as professionals, or how do you see the audience?
Yeah, I actually see the audience as being quite wide. One of the things that I've been finding, because this book has been out since the spring, is that people are telling me that they find it useful if they're a caregiver, they're finding it useful if they're a doctor, they're finding it useful if they're a teacher, they're finding it useful if they're somebody who's just very like a sensitive soul. When you pitch these kinds of books to a publisher, they do try to get you to hone it down to a few people in the audience so that they know how to market it. But I think it does appeal to a lot of folks, and caregivers is it's one of the groups that I was aiming for, and that's partly because I know so many caregivers. My partner looks after his mom at home here. We have lots of PSWs in and out of the house to care for her. So I have a deep understanding as well of what it means to look after a family member.
And let's back up a bit. What's your background in all of this? Where did all of this start for you in your life?
Well, in terms of where it started, I became an activist as a very young person, as a teenager. And then I went off to social work school. In my early years, I was working at a women's shelter, and then I worked with homeless youth, and then I worked with folks with addictions, and then I ended up in private practice. And today I have a private practice where I do psychotherapy, and I also supervise other folks who are in helping in professions.
And apparently, from what I'm reading right now, you were born in Zambia, and then your family came to Canada when you were, what, about five? What was that move like for you at such a young age?
We actually came when I was still like a toddler.
Ah.
I was year one. Yeah, and my family is originally from India. We spent 5 years in Zambia before coming to Canada.
Oh, you were
So
based there for 5 years. Oh, see, I can't even read today.
yeah, my family was there, and then we came when I was very, very young. And I think what that does for me is it gives me a really heightened sense of what it means to be a newcomer in this country, an immigrant, people who have some of those particular concerns around um, finding home. Yeah.
And like you say, your ancestry of people from India, and there has been a lot of people from India who originated, started, I don't know what term to use, that went to Africa. Do you know why that came about way back in the olden days?
Yeah, I think in the olden days it was really about trying to find livelihood. People were seeking new opportunities, and they found it often in East Africa. My own family, my dad just found a job in Livingston, Zambia. So that's how we ended up there.
So that's basically seems to be the story of the world. People are moving from one place to another for better opportunities, and now on the world scene, it seems like there's a lot of migration, we'll call it. I don't know what other term to use, from one part of the world to another. Basically, as you said, for economic reasons. Is that pretty much what you're discovering over the course of the years?
Well, for my own family, that was the reason. But what we're also seeing is it's also for safety. It's to leave places that have been impacted by war, places impacted by colonization, and I think we're going to see that climate change is also going to impact how people move around the world.
Right, and as I digress there for a moment, but let's get back to the book in
Yeah.
hand or at hand. It's 52 Weeks to a Sweeter Life for Caregivers, Activists, and Helping Professionals. Now, what do you mean by 52 weeks? Do you have like
Yeah.
a lesson a week? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it works that way. There's actually 40 distinct lessons, and then 12 of the weeks are set up to be review and reflection weeks. One of the things I know about people who are caregivers or activists or helping professionals is that they're busy people and they don't have, a lot of room in their life to figure this stuff out. So each lesson is set up to be about 3 minutes of reading. There are deeper dives for people who want to go deeper. There are small experiments for people to try to see if the strategy that I'm suggesting might be helpful to them. And then at the end of the month, there's that review and reflection. Um, and I think it's all meant to be pretty easy. The deeper dives can be found on my website, so there's links to videos and articles, that kind of thing.
And you reference dogs. I've got a note here that says you reference dogs a few times in this book, which I've had for a few days, but unfortunately haven't had a chance to really dive deep into it. So tell us about the dog situation, because, well,
Yeah.
where's mine? Oh, there she is right there behind me. So,
Oh, that's nice. Well, I'm a dog person. I've had the privilege of taking care of a dog for 14 years. She died a couple of years ago. And one of the things that I really learned from her were things like how to calm my nervous system. There's a lot of co-regulation that happens between our pets, our family members with fur, and ourselves. I learned about mindfulness from her. And one of the things that happened during the course of writing this book was, of course, she died as an old dog, and I realized that I was still a dog person, but without a dog and not ready to have another dog. And so I started volunteering at the local dog shelter over here, and it gives me an opportunity to be around dogs, but it also helped me with the grieving that happened after she died, because I was surrounded by other people who also loved dogs, and many of them were also grieving the dogs that they loved.
yes, and dogs can be good caregivers too, can't they?
They can be. And so, she comes up quite a bit in this book, and a couple of the dogs I fostered come up as well in this book, because, they teach you lessons about how to manage your feelings, how to manage your stress.
Exactly, how to manage your stress. They say that you pet a dog or be with it for what, a few minutes, and it lowers your blood pressure right away. Is that true, or is that just a myth?
No, I think that's true. I've read a study where just them staring at you with those dog eyes, they feel oxytocin and we feel oxytocin, and that feels really good for our brain and our bodies.
And yeah, and then they give you the look when they want something, right? They give you the look. Oh, here come Holly is our dog. Holly, oh, she's got the look. And then she tells me what she wants. And, that's what you need in life is just to be able to tell people what you want. Is that true, I guess?
Yeah, and there were many times, I spend a lot of time sitting, right? Because I'm a writer, and as a psychotherapist, I'm also sitting. So while I was writing, one of the things she would do, and this is a really common experience, is she would like come and nose my hand, and that would kind of wake me up to the moment and realize I've been sitting too long. Yes, I too need a walk. Yes, I too need to shake out my body. And that was actually something that I learned, from having a dog, is there are these somatic strategies to help us complete the stress response cycle that happens in our bodies. And if you've noticed how your dog shakes out after experiencing mild stressors, even like a stranger who pets your dog, they'll shake afterwards. That's them shaking out their stress.
And you said the W word, and I'm glad it wasn't too loud because she would have been in here. Because we can't say it out loud. I can't even spell it, and I can't even use code words anymore. She's figured that out too. So
It knows how to spell.
yeah, and Farzana Doctor's with us, and the topic at hand is the latest book called 52 Weeks to a Sweeter Life for Caregivers, Activists, and Helping Professionals. But this is not your first book. Apparently, when do you find time to write? Your busy professional life, busy personal social life, and then you have 4 books and a poetry collection as well. How do you do it?
Well, I have, it took me a long time, but I eventually got to a place where my writing life happens in the mornings, and in the afternoon is when I see my clients, and the activism happens kind of a little bit in the evening sometimes. So I found a way to kind of compartmentalize my life. When I first started writing, my first book came out in 2007, and that was a different time in my life. I had a full-time job back then. And it was everything was much slower. It would take a long time for books to come out. But yeah, my 7th book is coming out actually next week. It's a young adult novel, and it's coming out next week. And it's just that I have my entire morning available for writing.
And writing again with the book about 52 Weeks to a Sweeter Life. What are your hopes for this book?
I hope that it helps people understand a little bit more about why self and community care is a block for them. I want people to understand that burnout is a human experience. It's nothing to feel ashamed of. I want people to understand that what we really need are multiple daily practices that help us to reach out to others and manage our own stress. And I think that we need to see a bit of a culture shift, actually. When I think about all of the social service agencies and hospitals I've worked in, I think that there needs to be a bit of a culture shift so that the organizations help people to better manage their stress.
And 52 Weeks to a Sweeter Life, it's not necessarily, like you said, is for professionals, is it?
It's for professionals, but also caregivers, right? Family caregivers, and also for activists. And I just want to say a little plug around activists. There's so many people in the world who volunteer their time. They do community work. Maybe it's activism that's on the streets. Maybe it's activism that is more about like changing policies. And we don't often associate burnout and compassion fatigue with activist and community work. But I think that any kind of work, we are sensitive human beings, and any kind of work that exposes us to the traumas of the world, the individual traumas or the collective traumas, can overwhelm our nervous systems. And so I also think that people who do community work need to think a little bit about how we pace ourselves, how we take breaks, why we don't take breaks sometimes. And we need to maybe talk about like how things impact us.
And Farzana Doctor has been with us, 52 Weeks to a Sweeter Life. You mentioned a website. Can you give us that website before we go?
Yeah, it's just my name, FarzanaDoctor.com. So that's FarzanaDoctor.com. And I have a tab for the 52 Weeks book, and it's there that you can find all the deeper dive links and, links to learning more about my events. I do a lot of events to talk about this book and to talk about self and community care. I have a few coming up, so if people want to learn more about that, you can just go to my Instagram or go to my website.
And that's FarzanaDoctor.com, easy to remember, and this has been a very pleasurable, easy chat. So again, thank you very much for being with us.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, and go for your WALK.
Okay.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.tk. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at amazon.ca.